Admiral William Carter stared out the viewport of the United Earth diplomatic vessel. The massive space station known as Harmony Point hung against the backdrop of stars. Its curved design, meant to showcase the architectural brilliance of the 17 species that made up the Galactic Council. Carter found nothing harmonious about it. To him, it looked like what it was, a statement of power designed to intimidate newcomers. "Admiral, they're ready for us," said Lieutenant Olivia Martinez, straightening her blue diplomatic uniform. "The council representatives have assembled in the main chamber." Carter nodded, his face showing no emotion. "And our terms?" President Wells was clear, sir. "Earth will not surrender the Rigelian or Proxima colonies under any circumstances, and we maintain our military independence." "Good. Let's see if the Great Galactic Council can understand simple English," Carter said. The human delegation walked through the curved hallways of Harmony Point. Council staff from various alien species moved aside, some staring openly at the humans. Humans were newcomers to the galactic stage. Just 70 years had passed since they discovered faster-than-light travel, yet they had expanded quickly, settling several star systems before encountering the Council. Captain Samuel Wright, head of fleet security, leaned close to Carter. "They've increased security by 30% since our last meeting." "They're nervous," Carter replied quietly. "Good." The main chamber doors slid open, revealing a vast circular room. Curved tables arranged in rising tiers held representatives from all 17 council species. At the center table sat Ambassador Zextral, the six-eyed representative of the Thraxian Empire, one of the founding members of the council. "Welcome, delegates of Earth," Zextral's voice boomed through the chamber's perfect acoustics. "We trust you have considered our generous membership terms." Carter took his seat directly across from the alien ambassador. He didn't bother with pleasantries. "We have reviewed your terms and find them unacceptable." A murmur swept through the chamber. Council meetings typically involved hours of formal greetings before any real discussion began. Zextral's 6 eyes blinked in sequence, a sign of irritation. "Admiral Carter, the terms offered to Earth are standard for all new members. Every species represented here has made similar concessions for the greater good of galactic peace." Carter tapped the table console, bringing up a holographic display, visible to all. "Let's review these standard terms, shall we? First, Earth must reduce its military fleet by 60%, placing the remaining ships under Council command. Second, we must surrender our richest colonies, including Rigelian and Proxima, to become shared resource zones. Third, we must submit all new technologies for Council approval before implementation." He shut off the display. "These aren't terms for membership. They're terms for surrender." A tall, willowy alien with pale blue skin stood from the upper tier. "Admiral Carter," said Council Member Laurel of the Etherian Collective, "you misunderstand. These measures ensure stability. Your species has expanded rapidly, causing concern among established members." Lieutenant Martinez spoke up. "Is innovation a crime in Council space? Humans settled those worlds through our own efforts. We developed our technologies through our own research. We did this before we even knew the Council existed. Yet now you know we exist," Zextral countered. "And there are protocols that have maintained peace for thousands of years. Earth cannot simply ignore these traditions." Carter leaned forward. "We respect the Council's long history, but Earth will not be penalized for our achievements. The colonies stay under Earth control. Our military remains independent, and we will continue to innovate without asking permission." The Council chamber erupted with voices. Some representatives shouted about human arrogance. Others warned of the dangers of unchecked expansion. Carter remained silent, watching the chaos with calm eyes. Zextral raised all 4 of his arms, calling for order. When the noise subsided, he addressed Carter directly. "Perhaps we can reach a compromise. The Council might accept reduced concessions from Earth, given your unique situation." Carter looked at Martinez, who shook her head slightly. They had discussed this possibility before the meeting. "What compromises do you suggest?" Carter asked. Zextral's expression shifted to what humans had learned was a Thraxian smile. Perhaps just one colony, Proxima, with its rich mineral deposits, and a mere 40% reduction in your military capability. As for technology, only weapons systems would require approval. Captain Wright made a small noise of disgust beside Carter. The Admiral shared the sentiment but kept his face neutral. Ambassador Zexatral, Carter said, his voice level. For 3 weeks we have attempted to explain our position. You continue to treat Earth as a child to be disciplined rather than a partner to be welcomed. He stood up. This approach is no longer productive. Admiral. Zexatral's voice held a note of surprise. We still have 8 days scheduled for these talks? Not anymore. Carter nodded to Martinez and Wright. The United Earth government will be reconsidering our position on council membership entirely. The human delegation stood as one. The council chamber fell completely silent. Something the records would later note had not happened in over 2 centuries of proceedings. You cannot simply walk away, said Council Member Croval of the Tellarite hegemony. No species has ever rejected council membership. Then perhaps that's your problem, Carter replied. You've forgotten that membership should benefit both sides. As they walked toward the exit, a small green-skinned council member hurried to block their path. Admiral, please. The economic agreements alone would benefit Earth greatly. Your markets would expand to 17 systems. Carter paused. Counselor Nex, your traders have already approached Earth independently, seeking our agricultural products and entertainment feeds. I suspect those relationships will continue, council membership or not. The silence in the chamber deepened. Private trading outside council frameworks was technically forbidden yet widely practiced. Carter had just acknowledged it publicly. At tea. The door. Carter turned back to the stunned gathering. Earth remains open to true partnership. When the Council is ready to discuss terms that respect our sovereignty and achievements, you know how to contact us. The human delegation departed, leaving the Council representatives in disarray. As they walked back to their ship, Martinez looked at Carter. Do you think they'll reconsider, sir? Carter shook his head. Not immediately. Their system has worked for too long, but they'll be watching us. And if they don't change their approach? Wright asked. Then humanity continues on its own path, Carter said as they boarded their vessel. We survived on Earth alone for thousands of years. I think we can manage in space without the Council's permission. As the Earth ship pulled away from Harmony Point, communications channels across the station buzzed with urgent messages. The news spread quickly to all Council worlds. For the first time in Council history, a species had walked away from membership. Talks. The humans were charting their own course among the stars, and nothing in the Council's ancient protocols had prepared them for this possibility. 3 months had passed since the human delegation left Harmony Point. The Grand Meeting Hall of Earth Defense Command headquarters in Geneva buzzed with activity. Large screens displayed maps of human space, with green dots representing colonies, and blue lines showing trade routes. The number of both had increased noticeably since the failed Council talks. General Diane Powell studied the central display with sharp eyes. At 62, she had seen Earth go from a single-planet civilization to a growing interstellar power. The decision to walk away from the Galactic Council had been risky, but the data on the screens told her it was paying off. Another iridium deposit discovered in the Centauri belt, reported Colonel Frank Miller, pointing to a flashing indicator on the map. That's the 3rd major strike this quarter. Powell nodded. How soon until mining operations begin? The survey team says 2 weeks. Without Council regulations slowing us down, we can use the new Morris extraction method. The door slid open, and President Howard Wells entered. Everyone in the room stood a little straighter. Wells had led Earth through first contact and the early years of expansion. His weathered face showed the strain of recent months, but his eyes remained sharp and determined. At ease, he said, moving to stand beside Powell. What's our status? Powell gestured to the displays. Growth across all sectors, Mr. President. The Morris terraforming process has cut colonization time by 70%. We've established outposts in 3 new systems since leaving the Council table. Wells smiled slightly. And the Epsilon incident? Just observation vessels, Powell replied. Council ships maintaining distance but watching our border colonies. They haven't attempted contact. And no diplomatic messages either, added Communications Director Lisa Baker from her station. Not officially, at least. Wells raised an eyebrow. Unofficially? Baker tapped her console, bringing up a series of communication logs. We've received trade inquiries from independent merchants based in Tellarite and Etherian space. They're technically private entities, but the timing suggests their governments are looking for backdoor connections. Not surprising, Wells said. Our agricultural products and entertainment feeds were popular in Council space. How are we responding? Case-by-case basis, sir, Baker replied. We're allowing trade with private entities while making it clear these aren't official diplomatic channels. Wells nodded his approval. And our technological progress? Powell brought up another display showing various research projects. Dr. Alan Grant's team has finalized the enhanced shield design. It's ready for implementation across the fleet. Early tests show it would render most Council weapon systems obsolete. The President studied the shield specifications with interest. Have the Council spies gotten wind of this yet? We've detected increased scan attempts around our research facilities, Powell confirmed. They're curious, but our security is held. Wells was about to respond when an alert sounded. Baker quickly checked her console. Sir, we're detecting unusual activity on Council communication frequencies. Much higher volume than normal. Put it on speaker, Wells ordered. The room filled with a chaotic jumble of translated alien voices, overlapping in urgency. Market. Disruptions in the Outer Rim. Shortages reported in 3 sectors. Request emergency session to discuss trade alternatives. Baker switched off the audio. It's been like this for the past 12 hours, sir. Our analysts believe the Council economy is feeling the effects of lost human trade more severely than expected. Wells exchanged a knowing look with Powell. It seems our absence is being noticed. Should we reach out? Powell asked. Not yet, Wells replied firmly. Let them come to us. In the meantime, continue expansion and development as planned. I want every colony self-sufficient within 6 months. On the newly established colony of New Haven, Governor Joe Miller walked with Dr. Susan Morris through fields of golden wheat. The planet had been considered uninhabitable by Council standards just 8 months earlier. But Morris's revolutionary terraforming process had transformed the atmosphere in record time. The crops are exceeding expectations, Miller said, picking up a handful of rich soil. The farmers say this land is more fertile than anything on Earth, Morris nodded, her analytical mind already working on improvements. The modified bacteria are processing nutrients faster than we projected. We should accelerate the timeline for the southern continent. A small communication device on Miller's wrist beeped. Excuse me, he said, stepping away to answer the call. He returned. His expression was serious. That was Earth Command. They've detected Council observation ships in the outer system. Morris frowned. Do they pose a threat? They claim to be scientific vessels, Miller replied. But they're scanning our terraforming equipment. Let them look, Morris said with confidence. They won't understand what they're seeing anyway. Our methods are entirely different from Council protocols. Meanwhile, on Harmony Point, an emergency Council session had been called. The usually orderly chamber was in disarray as representatives argued among themselves. Council member Clovar of the Tellarite hegemony pounded his fist on the table. This situation is becoming intolerable. My outer colonies depend on human agricultural imports. They're reporting food shortages already. The humans will return when they realize the benefits of Council membership, Supreme Counselor Eridani insisted, though with less conviction than 3 months earlier. Will they? Asked Council member Jor-El of Tau Ceti. Reports indicate they've doubled their expansion rate without Council oversight. Their shield technology has advanced beyond our current capabilities. Ambassador Zextral's 6 eyes narrowed. They cannot sustain this growth. They lack the experience we have accumulated over thousands of years. Yet they terraformed the Rigelian moons in weeks, Jor-El countered. a process our engineers estimated would take decades. From his small observation booth, Earth's remaining diplomatic observer Peter Franklin watched with interest. Though Earth had withdrawn from membership talks, they maintained a minimal presence to gather intelligence. What Franklin witnessed was the beginning of fractures in the Council's unity. He made notes on his secure tablet. Tellarites desperate for agricultural trade. Tau Ceti impressed by terraforming. Growing faction favors reconsidering terms. Back on Earth, Dr. Alan Grant's team celebrated as the enhanced shield generator powered up successfully on the battlecruiser Defiant. Captain Ellen Rodriguez watched, the energy field shimmer around her vessel. Power consumption? She asked her chief engineer. 30% less than projected, he reported with a grin. We could withstand sustained fire from 3 Council warships simultaneously. Rodriguez nodded with satisfaction. Let's hope we never need to test that, but it's good to be prepared. As darkness fell over Geneva, President Wells stood alone, in his office, looking out at the lights of the ancient city. On his desk, reports showed humanity's progress since walking away from the Council table. New colonies, new technologies, new resources discovered every week. Yet he knew challenges lay ahead. The Council might be arrogant and set in their ways, but they represented thousands of years of galactic history. Sooner or later, they would respond to humanity's defiance. Wells smiled slightly. When that day came, Earth would negotiate from a position of strength, not weakness. The Council would learn that humanity would not be treated as a junior partner. They would come as equals, or not at all. Ambassador Peter Franklin adjusted his seat in the small observation booth overlooking the Galactic Council chamber. 6 months had passed since Earth walked away from membership talks. Though Franklin maintained no official status, the Council still permitted his presence as an observer. What began as a diplomatic courtesy had become his most valuable intelligence-gathering position. Today, the Council chamber buzzed with unusual energy. The normal order of speakers had been abandoned as representatives interrupted one another with increasing frequency. Councilmember Clovar of the Tellarite hegemony stood at the center of the chamber, his stocky form trembling with barely controlled anger. This boycott is destroying my people's economy. 3 of our outer colonies report critical food shortages. The alternative suppliers cannot match human agricultural output. Supreme Councilor Eridani, the oldest member of the Council, leadership raised his thin hand for calm. The humans will return when they realize the folly of isolation. All species eventually recognize the benefits of Council membership. Franklin made careful notes on his tablet. The counselor's voice lacked its usual certainty. The past 6 months had not gone as the Council expected. Will they return? Asked Jor-El of Tau Ceti, rising from his seat. Perhaps we should examine current data rather than relying on historical patterns. A murmur spread through the chamber at this challenge to Eridani's authority. Jor-El activated the central display, showing economic and territorial maps. Human expansion continues at an unprecedented rate. They have established colonies in 12 new systems since leaving our talks. Their terraforming technology has transformed 3 previously uninhabitable planets into thriving agricultural centers. Clovar nodded vigorously. Exactly. While we debate, they grow stronger. My people need their crops, their medicines. Ambassador Zextral's 6 eyes blinked rapidly, a sign of growing concern among Thraxians. The humans cannot sustain this growth without Council guidance. They lack the experience to— With respect, Ambassador, interrupted Jor-El. Our intelligence suggests otherwise. Observe these trade figures. The display shifted to show steep downward graphs across multiple sectors. Council economies are suffering while human prosperity increases, Jor-El continued. Their innovation cycle outpaces our technological research committees. The Morris terraforming process has revolutionized colony development, and there are rumors of a defensive shield breakthrough that renders our current weapons technology obsolete. Franklin kept his expression neutral, but internally he smiled. Earth's strategy was working better than anyone had anticipated. Counselor Nex, the small green-skinned representative who had tried to stop the human delegation from leaving, spoke up. Perhaps, he ventured carefully, we should reconsider our initial approach to human membership. Gasps echoed through the chamber. Suggesting a change to established council protocols was almost unheard of. The trade numbers speak for themselves, Nex continued, pointing to the displays. Many worlds are seeking unofficial channels to human markets. This undermines council unity and authority. Supreme Counselor Eridani's face showed displeasure. We cannot reshape thousands of years of protocol for one stubborn species. Then we may lose them entirely, Jor-El responded. And with them the benefits they bring to galactic society. Franklin slipped out of the observation booth and made his way to his small office station. He needed to report immediately to Earth. The council was fracturing faster than expected. Back on Earth, Secretary of Diplomacy Karen Miller read Franklin's report with satisfaction. President Wells and General Powell listened intently as she summarized. Ambassador Franklin confirms what our other intelligence sources suggest, Miller said. The council unity is breaking down. Smaller species are pushing for revised terms. Economic pressure is building on resource-dependent worlds. Wells nodded thoughtfully. And our position grows stronger by the day. The new colony on Delta Pavonis is already exporting grain. Dr. Grant's shield technology has been implemented across 60% of the fleet. We're receiving unofficial diplomatic inquiries almost daily, Miller added. Mostly from smaller, council species seeking trade agreements outside official channels. How should we respond? Asked Powell. Carefully, Wells replied. We maintain our position that full recognition of Earth's sovereignty is non-negotiable, but we can allow limited trade with individual species who approach us respectfully. Miller smiled. Making them dependent on us one by one. Not dependent, Wells corrected. Interdependent. We want partners, not subjects. That's the difference between our approach and the Council's. On the new human colony of Delta Pavonis, Governor Jack Nelson walked through fields of ripe wheat with 2 alien visitors. Though not officially sanctioned by the Council, representatives from smaller worlds had begun making discreet visits to human colonies. Your agricultural yields are remarkable, said the Etherian visitor, her willowy blue form bending to examine the golden grain. Our scientists estimated this world would need decades of terraforming before crops could grow. Nelson smiled with pride. Dr. Morris completed the atmospheric adjustments in under 3 months. We planted immediately after. And you would be willing to export surplus yields? Asked the Tellarite representative, trying to hide his eagerness. Earth believes in fair trade between equals, Nelson replied diplomatically. We're happy to discuss terms that respect both our interests. The Tellarite nodded eagerly. My government would be very interested in such arrangements, even if they must remain unofficial for now. As the tour continued, Nelson received a message on his communication device. He excused himself to read it privately. The message was brief, but significant. Council fracturing accelerates. Tau Ceti and 4 other systems formally request review of human membership terms. Continue diplomatic engagement with visiting representatives. Prepare for potential official council communication within 30 days. Nelson smiled as he rejoined his guests. The message confirmed what he already sensed. The balance of power was shifting. On Harmony Point, the council session had devolved into open disagreement. What began as discussion had become bitter argument between factions. We cannot allow individual agreements with humans, shouted a representative from one of the founding council worlds. All relations must go through proper channels. While you cling to protocol, my people face shortages, Clovar fired back. If the council cannot secure human trade, we will do so ourselves. Franklin watched from his booth as the unified front of the council crumbled before his eyes. He sent a quick update to Earth. Major breakthrough imminent. Council unity collapsing under economic pressure. Recommend preparation for official outreach. In Geneva, President Wells read the update and turned to his advisors. It seems our strategy is bearing fruit faster than expected. Prepare our negotiation team. This time we set the terms. General Powell nodded. And should the council refuse our terms? They won't, Wells said confidently. They need us more than we need them. They just haven't fully accepted that reality yet. Across human space, colonies flourished, innovations accelerated, and military readiness reached new heights. Earth had walked away from a bad deal, and in doing so, had changed the balance of galactic power. Now they waited for the Council to acknowledge what was becoming increasingly obvious. The age of human deference to alien authority was over. The emergency signal came without warning. Commander Derek Wilson of the battlecruiser Defiant stared at his communication screen in disbelief. The distress call originated from Outpost Sigma, Earth's furthest colony in the Sagittarius Arm. "Play it again," Wilson ordered his communications officer. The screen flickered, showing the pale, frightened face of the outpost commander. "This is Outpost Sigma requesting immediate assistance. We are under attack by unknown vessels. They appeared, without warning, and destroyed our outer defenses. Their technology is unlike anything we've encountered. They're not responding to communication attempts. We can't hold out much." The transmission cut to static. Wilson turned to his first officer. "How long to reach Sigma at maximum speed?" 14 hours, sir. Set course immediately. Alert Earth Command of our response." Wilson's face was grim as he added, "And prepare all weapon systems." The news of the attack spread quickly. Within hours, Earth Defense Command in Geneva was on full alert. President Wells stood in the Emergency Operations Center, surrounded by his top military and scientific advisors. "What do we know about these attackers?" Wells asked. General Powell brought up the limited sensor data from Outpost Sigma. "Very little, sir. Their ships appear to be entirely black, absorbing most sensor scans. They showed no warning before attacking and made no demands." "Could it be the Council?" someone asked. Powell shook her head. "Not their technology or tactics. This is something new." Before Wells could respond, Communications Director Baker interrupted. "Sir, we're receiving reports of similar attacks in Council space. 3 outer colonies hit in the past 12 hours. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. "Get me a direct line to Ambassador Franklin on Harmony Point," Wells ordered. "We need to know if the Council has more information about these attackers." On Harmony Point, the Council chamber was in chaos. Reports of devastated colonies arrived. Every hour, Ambassador Franklin watched from his observation booth as Supreme Counselor Eridani struggled to maintain order. "The Void Collective," announced a tall, gray-skinned scientist addressing the Council. That is what the few survivors from the Proxian colony called them. "Their ships absorb energy weapons and seem capable of regenerating damage. Our standard defenses are ineffective." Franklin's communication device vibrated. The message from Earth was brief. "Attack on Outpost Sigma. Unknown hostiles. Similar to Council reports?" He typed back quickly. "Confirmed. Council calling them Void Collective. Multiple colonies hit, their defenses failing." In the chamber below, Council member Jor-El spoke urgently. "The human shield technology might be our only hope. Their defensive innovations could withstand these attacks." Supreme Counselor Eridani's expression showed conflict. For thousands of years, the Council had maintained its position as the dominant power in known space. Now they faced a threat they couldn't handle alone. "Send an envoy to Earth immediately," Eridani finally announced. "Request their presence and assistance." Franklin smiled slightly as he sent another message to Earth. "Council officially requesting assistance. Recommend Admiral Carter return to Harmony Point." 14 hours after receiving the distress call, the Defiant dropped out of faster-than-light travel near Outpost Sigma. The scene that greeted Commander Wilson was grim. The outpost's main structures were heavily damaged. 3 black ships, shaped like elongated diamonds, circled the remains. "Shields at maximum," Wilson ordered. "Target the nearest enemy vessel." The weapons officer hesitated. "Sir, our sensors can barely lock on. They seem to absorb the targeting scanners." "Fire. Manually, then." The Defiant's main weapons fired, energy beams striking the nearest black ship. The vessel absorbed the attack, the energy seeming to sink into its surface. Then it turned, moving with surprising speed toward the Defiant. "Evasive maneuvers," Wilson shouted as the enemy ship fired a dark purple beam. The beam struck the Defiant's shields. Wilson expected immediate shield failure based on the reports, but Dr. Grant's new shield technology held. Shields at 78%, reported the defensive systems officer with surprise. "They're holding, sir." Wilson allowed himself a small smile. "Return fire all weapons." The battle that followed was unlike any in human experience. The enemy ships were powerful, but the Defiant's new shields gave it a fighting chance. After 20 minutes of intense combat, one of the black ships retreated, apparently damaged. "Sir," the communications officer called out, "we're receiving a transmission from Earth. Admiral Carter is heading to Harmony Point for emergency talks with the Council. All ships with the new shield systems are being deployed to protect human and Council worlds alike." Wilson nodded grimly. "Tell Earth Command we've engaged the enemy and confirmed the shields are effective. We'll hold position and protect what's left of the outpost." On Earth, Admiral Carter prepared to return to Harmony Point under very different circumstances than his departure. President Wells briefed him personally. "The situation has changed dramatically," Wells said. "This new threat, the Void Collective, is attacking both human and Council worlds indiscriminately. Our intelligence suggests they view all other life forms as resources to be harvested." Carter nodded solemnly. "And the Council has requested our help." "They have," Wells confirmed. "Specifically, they want our shield technology. Dr. Grant's innovation is the only defense that has shown any effectiveness against the Collective's weapons." "What are our terms?" Carter asked directly. Wells handed him a data tablet. "Full Council membership with equal standing. No surrender of colonies or military independence. Additionally, we want representation on all major Council committees and research access to Council archives." "They won't like that last part," Carter noted. "They guard their historical records carefully." "The situation has changed," Wells repeated. "We're no longer asking for membership, they're asking for our help." Carter reviewed the terms one more time. "And if they refuse?" "They won't," Wells said confidently. "But make it clear that our first priority is protecting human worlds. We'll assist Council planets only after our terms are accepted." 24 hours later, Admiral Carter walked into the Council chamber on Harmony Point. The room that once buzzed with the confidence of ancient civilizations now held representatives whose faces showed fear and desperation. Supreme Counselor Eridani stood to greet Carter personally, an unprecedented gesture. "Admiral Carter, thank you for responding to our request," Eridani said formally. "The threat faces us all," Carter replied. "Earth stands ready to assist." "We need your shield technology," Eridani stated without preamble. "The Collective breaches our defenses with ease." Carter kept his expression neutral. "And what does Earth receive in return?" "Full Council membership," Eridani offered. "Equal standing. No surrender of colonies or military independence." "A good start," Carter said, placing Wells's tablet on the center table. "But insufficient. Earth will share our technology and commit our fleet to the defense of Council worlds under these terms." As Eridani read the terms, his eyes widened slightly. "Access to the ancient archives? That has never been granted to a new species." "These are unprecedented times," Carter replied calmly. "Earth needs to understand what we're facing. Your archives may contain information about similar threats from the past." Around the chamber, Council representatives whispered among themselves. The ancient archives contained the accumulated knowledge of 17 species over thousands of years. It was their most closely guarded treasure. But as another emergency signal arrived announcing the fall of 2 more Council worlds to the Void Collective, Eridani made his decision. "We accept your terms, Admiral. The Council welcomes Earth as a full and equal member." As if to emphasize the urgency, the station's alarms began to sound. On the main display, 3 black ships appeared at the edge of the system. The Void Collective had arrived at Harmony Point itself. The Grand Chamber that once hosted tense negotiations now served as the unified command center for the first truly cooperative human Council military operation. Admiral Carter stood before a massive holographic display showing the positions of all Allied ships. The combined fleet assembled near the Procyon system represented the largest armada in recorded galactic history. Shield integration complete on 70% of Council vessels, reported engineer Nancy Rodriguez, who headed the technology transfer team. Her team had worked without rest for 2 weeks, adapting Dr. Grant's shield design to the various alien ship configurations. Carter nodded with approval. And weapons coordination? All ships are linked to the Central Tactical Network, answered Captain Paul Harris. The Council fleet commanders were resistant at first, but seeing the Defiant's performance against the Void Collective changed their minds quickly. Laura Chen, newly appointed Human Council member, joined them at the command table. Just days earlier, the updated treaty had been signed, recognizing human sovereignty and granting full Council membership without the traditional probationary period. The Earth flag now hung prominently among the founding members' banners. The Council Science Division has finished analyzing the data from the ancient archives, Chen reported. They believe they've identified the origin of the Void Collective. Carter raised an eyebrow. That was fast. Having access to the archives helped, Chen said with a slight smile. There are records of similar entities from the far reaches of the Andromedan Arm, roughly 12,000 years ago. They're not invaders as we first thought, they're refugees. Refugees? Carter looked skeptical. They've destroyed dozens of outposts without communication. According to the archives, they come from a region of space experiencing some kind of catastrophic event, possibly a chain of supernovas or worse. Their ships are designed to absorb energy because that's how they survive. They may not even recognize our colonies as inhabited by intelligent life. Supreme Counselor Eridani joined the conversation, his ancient eyes showing both weariness and newfound respect when looking at the humans. This information changes our approach. If they are indeed refugees, perhaps communication is possible. Carter considered this. Possible, but we still need to defend our worlds. They've shown no interest in dialogue so far. Which is why we need both strength and understanding, Chen suggested. We fight to protect our people, but we also try to establish contact. The tactical display flashed red, indicating incoming vessels. The Void Collective had arrived at the edge of the Procyon system, a fleet of 30 black ships moving in perfect formation. All ships to battle positions, Carter ordered. Deploy as planned, but hold fire until my command. The combined fleet moved with surprising coordination, Council and human vessels forming a defensive barrier around the inhabited planets of the system. The new shields glowed with soft blue energy as they powered to maximum. They're scanning us, reported a sensor officer, more intensely than in previous encounters. They sense the shields, Eridani observed. They haven't encountered this technology before. The Void Collective ships paused their advance, seemingly assessing the situation. Then they did something unexpected. They formed a circular pattern and ceased all scanning activity. What are they doing? Carter wondered aloud. Dr. Benjamin Ross, Earth's leading xenolinguist, studied the sensor readings carefully. This could be a neutral posture. I suggest we attempt communication now while they're not advancing. Carter nodded. Send the message package we prepared. The communication team transmitted the carefully crafted message, a series of mathematical sequences followed by simple visual representations of peaceful contact, broadcast on all frequencies and energy patterns. For long minutes, there was no response. The void ships maintained their circular formation, neither advancing nor retreating. Then suddenly one ship detached from the formation and moved slowly toward the center of the Allied fleet. They're responding, Ross said excitedly. That's a communication approach pattern similar to what we've seen in other non-humanoid species. All ships hold position, Carter ordered. No aggressive moves. The lone black ship stopped at a neutral distance. A strange energy pattern emanated from it. Not a weapon, but a signal of some kind. Ross worked frantically with his team and council, scientists, to decipher the message. It's not language as we understand it. They communicate through energy pattern modulation, but the mathematical foundation is universal. After hours of tense exchange, with both fleets hovering in uneasy proximity, Ross finally broke into a smile. We've established basic communication. They are indeed refugees from a catastrophic event in their home region. They didn't recognize our outposts as intelligent habitations. They perceived them as energy sources only. Carter exchanged looks with Eridani. Tell them we can offer assistance, but the attacks must stop. 6 months later, representatives from Earth, the Council, and even the Void Collective gathered to sign the new Galactic Charter. The Void representatives, now understood as refugees rather than invaders, appeared as swirling clouds of dark energy contained in specially designed interface chambers. President Wells stood at the podium, addressing the assembled delegates. Today marks the true beginning of galactic cooperation. Not based on tradition or dominance, but on the recognition that diversity of approach and mutual respect create strength. The Charter established new protocols for first contact, guaranteed the sovereignty of all member species, and created resource-sharing programs to help resettle the Void Collective in uninhabited systems where their energy needs could be met without harming others. As the ceremony concluded, Admiral Carter found himself standing next to Ambassador Zexatral, whose attitude had changed dramatically since their first meeting. "You knew, didn't you?" the Thraxian asked. "You knew we would eventually need you more than you needed us." Carter smiled diplomatically. "Let's just say humans have a long history of walking away from bad deals and negotiating better ones." In the newly reorganized council chamber, the human delegation no longer sat at the bottom tier reserved for junior members. Instead, they occupied seats among the founding races, their flag prominently displayed. Human innovation had already begun transforming council technology, while access to the ancient archives accelerated Earth's understanding of galactic history. Laura Chen, now serving as Earth's permanent council representative, met with Admiral Carter and President Wells after the charter signing. "The Void Settlement Program is proceeding well," she reported. "Their knowledge of energy manipulation is remarkable. Once we established proper communication, they've been eager to collaborate." Wells nodded with satisfaction. "And council relations?" "Transformed," Chen said simply. "They've abandoned the tiered membership approach entirely. All new species will now be evaluated based on what they contribute, not their age." "And the expansion restrictions?" Carter asked. "Lifted completely. In fact, 3 council species have requested human assistance with their colonization efforts. They want to learn the Morris terraforming process." Wells looked out at the stars visible through the station's viewport. 6 months ago, they wanted us to surrender our colonies and technology. Now they're asking us to help them expand. "Funny how things change when you're willing to walk away from a bad deal," Carter observed. "And even better when you return on your own terms," Chen added with a smile. Across human and council space, a new era of cooperation had begun. Ships that once watched each other with suspicion now patrolled together. Technologies were shared and improved through collaboration. The Void Collective, once seen as an existential threat, was being integrated into galactic society as their true nature was understood. It had all started with humanity's willingness to say no, to walk away from the negotiating table when the terms were unfair. That single decision had fundamentally changed the balance of power in the galaxy and ushered in a new age of true partnership among the stars.